It's October 2019, and we are doing an investigation of sandbag alternatives and testing. The first thing we want to look at is the Hydra barrier. Eco-friendly, reusable sandbag alternative. It's going to fill up with a hose, and it's about 4 or 5 feet long. We'll put the measurement on it. That's the first one. Now we're filming, we're seeing how easy it is to fill this thing up. The basic idea is that it's going to be
Oh, it's a water, like a water bed.
like a water bed.
So it's gonna pull up.
So this is kind of like the aqua dams, but more of like a home version of it. So it looks like you're going to pull that plug right out of it. So you got to pull that whole thing up. Okay, I see. And then you unscrew that. Let's zoom right in on the little lip that comes off of it. Yeah, it's gonna pull that thing out. Okay, it's out. Okay, that's what that looks like. All right. And this shows the connection. That's a standard garden hose going in there, although my partner's going to get a special piece. And uninflated, this particular one is about 5.5 feet, so it'll get a little bigger. Now another option to fill it is we have a special piece that is designed for a waterbed that looks like probably a better way to do it if you don't, if you have it. So all right, let's turn the water on and see how this thing fills up. Okay, here it is filling up with water. And it's, oh yeah. I'll say careful, don't poke your eye out. So I will start the video again when it's done filling. It's been going about 20 seconds right now. Okay, so that's about a minute later. We see it's all inflated with, or filled up with water. It's starting to roll a little bit, but let's seal it off and we'll test it out. Just to note that we actually overfilled it a little bit. We didn't get that on camera, but you can see a lot of water spilled out when we tried to refill it. Also, it does kind of roll a little bit, so it might be worth putting some kind of barrier to hold it from rolling back. But let's test it out now with some water flow and see how it does. So here's the Hydra barrier now, fully filled up, rolled into place for testing. It is about 6 feet long, and this was an introductory one. They come bigger. In terms of the height, we're getting about 5 inches. It looks like it's giving from the ground up. All right. Yeah, it's at about 6.5, 7 inches across. And just to see how, we did let a little out. It's somewhat solid. It will probably roll away on a driveway, but maybe on the grass or anyways. All right, well, let's flood it and see what happens. Here we see a flooding simulation. The thing was bent in this sort of, the ends were bent, but it looks like it's holding the water back pretty good. I mean, it's going around the edges. We can see up in the front here, it's really not going under it too much. There's a little bit going under here at this spot, but it's mostly going around the edge like you'd expect it to. There we go. We just modified the shape of it. That seems to be holding up. Yeah. So you can see how it's kind of channeling the water, kind of circulating it out and around. I mean, not necessarily expecting it. You do have a little, not really coming up the middle. It seems to be working for the most part. Here it is in the sort of straight line position. As expected, it is kind of just going around the edges, but the middle seems to be holding up for the most part. Okay, all right, cool. So the Hydra barrier. The next test is going to be of the Quick Dam. And this is flood barriers that are designed to absorb, contain, and divert water. And so the idea with this one is there's it'll as it gets wet, it'll grow into its shape. So unlike the one we just saw before, you don't need to fill this one up. However, the packaging says that it's, from what I read, it's permanent. So once it's out, you can't sort of decommission it like the other one. So we'll test this one out next. This is what it looks like. It's, how would you describe the material? It's kind of almost like a felty material, absorbent.
It feels like, what's that called? Tyvek?
Tyvek. Okay. So we're just going to put it down right in
It
front.
looks and feels almost like a Tyvek.
Yeah. Okay. So it's supposed to get to 6 feet as well. So let's try it out. Okay, so the instructions say to pre-soak it. So we're just going to use the flow from the aqua dam to pre-soak it up. And we can see about 20 seconds it's been going. It's sitting in a puddle of water. And this is about 30 seconds, and I'll come back when it's more filled up. Now this is about a minute later since the previous video, and you can see that it is starting to swell up and water is being diverted. It's pretty solid. It's basically like a big sponge. And I think an advantage it's going to have is it's got this thing behind it that's going to, I think, support it from moving away. And if you look, the water is being routed around it. Because here's what we, from before, behind it, there's not really much water getting through. It's just going along the sides. This video now, we've been running water on it for about 3 minutes. It's about 2 inches high, and the documentation says it'll go to 3 inches. So let's try something different, actually. In this variation, I now have the water going directly on it, and you can clearly see that that's making it swell up a lot more. So I'm sure that if you were really torrential flood coming, it would absorb a lot of water. Let's do a measurement test. 3 inches?
3 inches, yeah.
Oh, tape measure. No. Here, you want to hold the tape measure? I'll film measuring it. Oh, yeah, so here it's about 3.5, what it says it was going to do. So, kind of side by side, you can see the Hydra barrier is definitely taller. In terms of solid, this one's pretty solid. It's a little more wobbly, but okay. So now we're just looking at sort of the form factor. We're moving the Hydra dam. No, I can't remember what it's called, but how was that to move? Was it real heavy?
Not bad at all.
Not bad at all. How about this one?
This was definitely a lot
A lot heavier. Yep.
to move, yeah.
And you can see they're both working really well. And if you see the way it was just changing this, there's nothing coming behind it. Right at the gap here, of course, there's a little bit of flow, but you can see it's almost pooling up and going around it. And then I wonder if you did something like,
Yeah, it'd be worse.
yeah, it's worse. Somehow. So, of course we have corners and so forth. But again, Hydra berry doesn't have much, certainly nothing's getting underneath it. Nor the other one as well. The water is basically, this is mostly where it's coming out. Now as a final test, let's try sandbags. All right, as the final test, here we see the Hydra barrier, and now we're here to see the sandbags are in the mix. And it's a little hard to see maybe, but there's definitely, it could either be the edge effect. The sandbags are working okay. I mean, where the edges meet, there's water getting around. They are stopping it, but they're sandbags, right? They're heavy, they're dirty, they're semi-permanent compared to other ones where you can clearly see the water started going around the edge over here because this thing is stopping it. And there's even a little pool here. You can see my foot's in a pool of water. So, all right. Yep, that's that. Just to round it out, now when you're done with these things, the Hydra barrier, of course, can be taken down. So it's just a matter of pulling that out, pulling this out, kind of like an air mattress. And that way then you can decommission it out and reuse it. So however long it takes for that to go. Sandbags, of course, are very seasonal. They're going to get dirty. The bags will break open. They get hit with water. The last thing, the quick dam is meant to be sort of pseudo-permanent. So once it is swelled up with water, it stays that way. It's supposed to be good for the season. But once you use it, you're done with it. So you can't reuse it like the Hydra barrier. It does have a better design with this back thing to allow it rolling. The Hydra barrier rolls right away, but it might not be too much of an issue. So that's it. All right. Stay dry.